welcome to Glendora Perspective. I'm Diane Michelson.
And I'm Lois Shade.
Same old ladies here.
Same old lady, same young ladies.
Young ladies tonight.
Yes.
Okay, we have a guest with us tonight.
We do.
Yes, we met him at this first street fair, folks.
Yes.
Michael Archer, and he's a publisher, and he's written some wonderful books, and he's going to tell us all about his books and his...
And firebombing and forest fires and air tankers and all that good
yes,
stuff.
it'll be very interesting.
And he brought us these nice little hats.
We thank you so much.
There will be many who resent our daisies, who will be thrilled.
Now let's get down to our
Let's
guest.
get down to business.
This is wonderful.
Mike Archer is a wildland fire. See, after I read this stuff, I have trouble. Give me a minute, guys. Mike Archer is a wildland firefighting expert who has written articles for Home and Fire magazine, Wildland Firefighter magazine, and other publications. He has lectured to firefighters, public service groups, and at schools. He has been quoted in USA Today and has also appeared on KABC TV discussing wildfire issues. His Firebombers Incorporated series of novels gives readers an intriguing what-if scenario on how 21st century technology could modernize the wildland firefighting force. His publishing company, Firebomber Publications, donates 50% of net profits to organizations that support the families of injured and fallen firefighters. Currently, he is a technical consultant to Wildfire Research Network, a nonprofit which researches better ways to fight wildfires. These are his books. We met him at the street fair.
And this is the book that he had at the street fair, and I bought one for my helicopter son.
And I'm going to buy a couple tonight for
this is his
my
second book.
soon-to-be a teenage grandson. And they're very interesting. How did you get started with this, Mike?
Well, I'm an engineer by training, and I looked at things from an engineering standpoint, and I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I applied some of the standards, modernized it using the latest computers, electronics, and technology to come up with something that would really revolutionize the way that they fight wildfires.
We've had a series of bad ones lately in our hills here.
We have.
And I think one of the conversations we had at the street fair was something about our water fighting bombers not being up to par, maybe being phased out.
Part of the problem is we rent the super scoopers, which everybody knows about for this area. From Canada. And they only come in for 3 months out of the year. This past year they were only here for 2 months because they were delayed due to fires in Canada. This year Canada's got a lot more dead trees. They've already had a lot more fires, and we're afraid we may not get them at all this year.
It's scary.
How? Well, yeah, you're at the end of Lone Hill up against the mountains. How would we begin if we don't have those super scoopers? How do we begin to manage these forest fires?
We would have to do things like thinning out the trees, get the brush out from the areas that it's built up in, mechanical thinning. We'd have to have better defensive zones around the homes so that the homes are not threatened if there is a fire. There are a number of things that can be done ahead of time, but once the fire gets there, you're going to need a lot of aircraft to try and knock down the fires.
Right.
Yeah, some areas you just can't get into.
No.
Right.
It seems to me David Dreyer had a proposal at one time to go in to purchase these aircraft and get them online. Did that did not happen?
Never got funded. Like so many other good proposals that come along, people would say there simply isn't the money to do this. And this is one of the things with my books is it takes money to do some of the things that I talk about in my books. So if there's no funding, some of the funding that we used to have has even been removed, so it's almost impossible to do those things now.
When you say creative things in your books, are they really technologically feasible?
Yes.
Can you give us an example?
An example is typically firefighting aircraft only fly between dawn and dusk, actually within a half hour of dawn and dusk. After that time they're grounded. Fires lay down, as they call it. They go down to a lower intensity level at night as it cools off. That's the best time to fight a fire, is at night. In my books they use a combination radar, all light TV, which is basically low light and visible spectrum, and infrared combined into one unit called a Trident unit, which they use to see through the smoke. They can see at dark night. They can maneuver in across the terrain just looking in the monitor. It's just like they're flying in the daytime with no smoke in the way.
Wonderful! Isn't that impressive?
What are these? There, you said there is a couple of pieces of legislation. Aerial firefighter. I'm having trouble tonight, folks.
Have you been nipping the sauce?
Not nearly enough. Aerial Firefighter Relief Act of 2005, HR 1232. If you want to look it up on the internet, what is that?
These are bills which would get better benefits for the firefighting pilots. For the heavy air tankers, the big 4-engine planes we see bombing the fires, those flyers are considered to be contractors. They're not considered to be full-time firefighters. If one of those planes crashes, like one you may have seen on TV in 2002 where the wings flew off and the plane crashed, those pilots' families get zero from the federal government as a death benefit. If a city firefighter dies fighting fire, they get $275,000 for the family. But these federal pilots don't get a dime. And so these bills would go in and they would change that so that they would get better benefits. The problem is they're leaving the business because it's dangerous, the equipment is wearing out, and they don't get the death benefits that they would as a civilian pilot. And so as a result, they say, we're out of here. So we're losing the pilots.
When you say they contract, are they actually employees of the federal government?
Basically.
And then we contract with the federal government for their services?
Yeah, what happens is you'll have a company like Hawkins & Powers or Aero Union, and these companies will bring in these pilots, and the company then will contract to the federal government to do this sort of thing. And the problem with this is when they grounded so many planes in 2002, Hawkins & Powers, second largest in the business, finally had to go out of business because they can't afford to run the operation without being able to fly the planes. So you lost 50 aircraft and all those contract pilots.
What does one of those planes cost?
Depends on the type of aircraft. For instance, the Super Scoopers are over $20 million each.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's one reason that they haven't bought any.
What about the inspection of these planes? Is that something that's not done properly?
Yeah, and that's part of the problem is a lot of these operations are mom and pop contractors that have 1 or 2 planes. So when the federal government overreacted, they grounded all the heavy air tankers, even those that were probably still airworthy, until such time as they could inspect them. They're basically guilty until proven innocent. And so as a result, a lot of these small operations are going out of business because they can't afford to have this inspection done. That's what the other bill on the list of bills there would take care of, is the 45.
We have HR 1232,
right.
S 1143, and HR 4533.
Right, HR 4533, which is from the 108th Congress, that's the previous Congress, is set up to inspect, repair, and get the planes back in the air. Both sets of bills are trapped in congressional subcommittees. They're just sitting there in a netherworld, if you will, where they can't get out. You mentioned here
Diane Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, and David Dreyer. If people contact them and encourage them to get this bill through, that's going to help?
Yep, because
if our viewers would do that.
Yeah, as more people get involved to push this, they'll start listening. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, as it were. So I go around speaking at service groups wherever I can. At the street fairs, I give away these flyers to people and try to get the word out so that people will do something.
Yeah, we have a couple of, let's see, you went to the West Covina Rotary. I recognize several names there. Glendora Kiwanis News.
Yep.
You're a very busy man.
Oh,
yes. And you've been on several...
You know, this doesn't just affect people in the fire areas.
No.
It affects everyone around.
It does.
In the valleys, the small